Welcome to the ProfServ Traction Podcast, dedicated to exploring how professional services and technology businesses break through the ceiling. Here's your host, Steve Preda.
Good day, dear listeners. My name is Steve Preda. I'm the host of the ProfServ Traction Podcast, and I have today with me Ben Feferman, who's a serial entrepreneur from Ontario, Canada. Hi, Ben. Let me introduce you, Ben. He is the CEO of Amuka Esports, which is Canada's leader in esports venues, leagues, and tournaments. He is also the managing partner of Amuka Capital, which raises capital for real estate, technology, and particularly esports companies. He is also the co-founder of an incubator called Level 6 Esport Incubator, which is the first and only incubator for esport related companies in Canada. He also is the founder of a Twitch channel, Old People Playing Games, which I particularly like because it reminds me of myself, not as a gamer, but maybe the age group. And he holds a BA in law and an MBA in real estate leadership. So very interesting background. He also holds a security license in Canada. So excited to have you, Ben.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So this is a really interesting bio. Probably you are the best so far in terms of the variability and kind of excitement of your bio. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get here? Real estate, esports, MBA, and all these different companies that you're running.
Yeah, sure. I've always been interested in finance and money. Since my bar mitzvah, I was trading, my bar mitzvah money when, online brokerages started to come up in, 20 plus years ago. So I've always loved it. I never went to business school originally, so really self-taught. I went into film because I was just passionate about it, produced a couple of documentaries, and then decided, I really wanted to go into finance. So I got registered as a securities dealer, worked for a couple of shops. And then really the entrepreneur in me said, I want to open up my own investment bank. So I did that a couple of years ago, called Amuka Capital. We started to raise money for some real estate projects, tech deals, and then eventually esports companies were coming to us. And this was kind of in the middle of the cannabis boom. And really I love the industry. I love the space, and just thought, hey, you know what? There's an opportunity to really build something from the ground up instead of raising money for other companies. And so kind of put the bank on hold. It's still active, and really went all in on Amuka Esports, which is, we raised a little bit of money and acquired esports assets that are really synergistic and connected at a local level.
That's really exciting. I didn't realize that we actually have very similar backgrounds. I also I'm a former investment banker. I had an M&A firm that I built from the ground up, and then I went into a different direction, much like you. So that's really interesting to hear. But let's go back to this esport thing. I mean, I have to tell you, I'm a little bit, I feel a little bit bad about this because I felt kind of weird about this whole esport idea until I started watching a couple of your videos and hearing a little more about it. So please tell us a little bit about this whole idea that how can computer games be sport, and why do we call it a sport, and how is it different from other sports?
Yeah, so at the most basic level, esports is playing video games competitively. It could be, playing for $10 or bragging rights with a few of your friends in a beer league, or it could be playing for $40 million of prize pool in a similar stadium that you have in your background like that. So that's where esports, I mean, look, anything and everything can be competitive. Food is competitive. There's a competitive food eating scene. I know a lot of people are kind of hung up on how can video games be a sport or competitive, and my answer is, what isn't competitive these days? The other thing that comes up is streaming and content creation. People do watch other people play video games, which people think is kind of weird, and to that, if you really just think objectively, is it really that weird? What else do people watch on YouTube? My kids watch marble runs and all sorts of weird stuff. So I think it's if you love the game, you watch it. Like, football's a great example. You ask people like, do you play football? No, 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 I don't play football. But do you watch other people play football? Hell yeah, I watch it every Sunday. So like, why would esports be different?
Yeah, that's a good point. When I think about back to my college years when we played video games every now and then, and it was kind of addictive, and I felt like since I'm never gonna make it, it wasn't even a thing at the time. I just realized it was a waste of time for me because I could put my efforts to better use. But if I see that someone has just won $3 million, a 16-year-old kid in Fortnite, then maybe that is worth putting some efforts into it.
Yeah, and even forgetting that for a second, you can get a full scholarship, competing in League of Legends or Rocket League. So the same way, if you excelled in football or basketball or hockey, you could get a scholarship and go to college and get a great education. Same thing with esports. Most universities now in Canada, so most colleges have an esports program. Many universities have one, and in the US as well, we're seeing a lot of them where you can get a partial or full scholarship to play and compete.
That's amazing. So what really resonated with me when I was listening to another podcast that you did is this idea that some of the kids who are maybe not athletic, they find a good outlet for their talents. When I was in high school, I wasn't really good at basketball or soccer, but I was kind of intrigued by fencing, and I started fencing, and I kind of had this idea that you can be a fencer even if you're not athletic in the usual way, and you can be successful. There were some examples in front of me who were kind of really weird style of fencing, but they were successful, were champions. I really like this idea that maybe this is a sport for me, and I was reasonably successful. So maybe this is a similar idea, that these kids find an outlet where they can be talented.
Yeah, 100%. I think when we look at kind of like the social activities in academic institutions, they're very focused on traditional sports, which are largely physical. And if you don't fit that mold and you're not good at sports, it's hard for your confidence, it's hard to fit in, it's hard to make friends. And there was many generations that grew up not being able to find those communities. And I think what esports has done is it's empowered people that do love games to now say, hey, there's a community that I can fit in with and belong with, and I can succeed and improve and get better. And the skills you learn playing a lot of these video games, especially the ones that are team based, are are so important with all the other skills you're learning: critical thinking, strategy, problem solving, working as a team. Like, these are critical skills that everyone needs to have, and you are constantly building and developing them in your gameplay.
That's really cool. There's a lot of talk these days about gamifying in the workplace to make it more engaging and more interesting for people, especially younger generations who were brought up on maybe video games. So is there a way to kind of, are there games that help teams get better in teamwork and build better relationships? Is this even a thing?
I can tell you that there's games that don't do that. There's a popular game called Among Us, which we do play jokingly as a team. And the idea really is you got to kind of lie and cheat and deceive your way into victory. So we played that as a team. I think it's fun team building, even though like kind of the objective is the opposite. But listen, I think anytime you're playing together and competing is good team building. And so it doesn't have to be a game that is focused on that. I just think if you want to play Counter-Strike together as a team, then yeah, that's great. I think you guys will, your team could bond over that. And there are games that are good for beginners to figure out. Among Us might be a good one.
So, Ben, switching gears here. So tell me a little bit about what does an esport facilitation, venues, the business look like? What is the business model, and what do you do when there's a pandemic going on?
Yeah, so we have more of an esports arena. So people can come in during the day and play on our PCs and consoles. Why would someone come in here and play when they can play at home? Number one is you're playing on like a top of the end PC. So like our specs are top of the line, both computers, peripherals, monitors, everything. Also, internet speed is very important. So we've got the fastest commercially available internet you can get right now. So if you don't have a good internet connection in your home, it really affects your online gameplay. And the last reason people come in is like just privacy or playing with their friends. Like some people just can't have 3 or 4 guys in their bedroom or basement playing Fortnite, so they come in and play. That's not even like the biggest part of the business. The real part is tournaments. So we, pre-COVID, we were running uh 4, 5, sometimes even 6 tournaments a week. People pay an additional fee to enter, and that's our biggest source of revenue. So during COVID, we moved all those tournaments online, and we continue to run them online. And I think we're going to be reopening again next week, so people can still come back in person and game again.
That's interesting. So how does that work in the virtual realm? So when there's a pandemic, let's say if for next 12 months, you won't be able to be on anywhere near your earlier capacity, how do you make up for lost revenue?
I don't know. Moving
I mean,
events.
you mentioned some things about sponsorship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So tell me about how that works. How do you move it online and the sponsorships and stuff?
yeah, the
How,
model definitely changes. So when we run a event here, we're giving gamers a professional gaming experience. Steve, if you come in here, do you play any video games?
Uh, I used to play a little bit of soccer and some tennis, but not a lot.
Okay, so let's say, you like soccer, you're going to come in, you're going to play in our FIFA league, for the
Yeah,
FIFA, the video
FIFA.
game. So yeah, of course you could play at home on Xbox or PS4, but when you come in here, you're on a stage and there's casters. Steve passes out the ball here, makes his way in. There's lights. It's streamed online. Your friends are there, so you get such an incredible experience. So it's worth paying the 10 or $20 entry fee to get in and compete and play. And there's no other gaming experience like that in Toronto, especially a couple of our competitors have now gone under. But as soon as we move online, now we are competing with thousands of tournament operators around the world. So how do we compete and still make money? So we have to have tournaments that are sponsorship driven and free to enter. So it just means we have to work harder to get sponsors to say, hey, we're going to have a huge tournament. 1,000 people are going to come in. We're going to have X thousand amount of viewers. It's going to be free to enter. We need this amount of money for the production and for a prize pool. So that's how the model changes when you move online, and is a little bit more difficult, but I think the results are way better. Like we're hitting great numbers. We're moving into markets that we wouldn't normally do geographically because we can do it online.
Yeah, this is so exciting, and obviously the pandemic is a great tragedy for society in general, and a lot of people dying and hurt. But there are also a lot of innovation coming out, and I was just reading this blog the other day from a guy who runs essentially a dating network for M&A firm, for mergers and acquisitions firms, where private equity groups and investment bankers can come together. It's called acquihire. And he was talking about how the due diligence process changed, and everything is happening online, and the roadshows are happening online, and they have conferences where they have these speed dating situations where people who look for capital and capital providers, they can come together and discuss things. And they did it now online. And what happened was they surveyed the participants, and they actually preferred the online. So over 50% said that they actually prefer the online to the real thing. And another 30% said that they don't care. It was only less than 20% who thought that in person was even better. So what is your thinking? Do you think it's going to go back or it's going to be a hybrid model going forward?
I think in general, I like the fact that every meeting is virtual now. Like, if I've had a long day and, I got like my 4 or 5 o'clock call, I can relax, put my feet up, do business in the comfort of my office, So it gives me a lot of flexibility. I think it is great that there's a lot of, I think it's the hybrid, at the end of the day, Travel is expensive. Travel is difficult. I'm a networking guy. I love to go out there. I'm outgoing, shake hands, meet people, network, connect. So I want to go back to that. And I also think a lot of events, at least in my industry, are very experiential. So, you know, let's say DreamHack. Okay, DreamHack's a huge event. It's in Montreal. It's at like a stadium like you have behind you. I want to watch the action, hear the fans, and cheer like the excitement. I'm not getting that online. So I think if it's just like a panel and speakers, yeah, you could do that online. It's probably makes more sense. But if it's a experiential event like that, like an esports competition or
Yeah.
an expo, it I definitely want to see it back as a live event.
Yeah, it's the immersion feeling to be part of it. I also find that when I go to a conference, then I can basically disconnect completely with what I'm doing, so I can be totally present. Whereas I'm doing it from my office, then I'm going to be distracted and just going to quickly answer this email or do a call, and then I'm suddenly not fully immersed. I'm not fully engaged, and the quality of the experience. I don't get the benefit, the side benefits of it.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that's definitely a good point. I also like I love the business travel experience. Like, I
yeah,
love flying. I love rental cars. I love hotel rooms. I think it's all part of the trip. But the biggest downside when you ever go to these conferences is like, you get back. Maybe you've experienced this. You get back to your hotel and you got like 100 emails, and it's just like they just keep building up, and you're trying to forget about it. You want to experience this conference. You paid all the money to get here and the time. So that's always a struggle I have is, like to be able to put all that work aside so I can focus on the event.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So what about the upside? I mean, when you say that you can do you can basically do cross border or global things. I mean, is there a bigger market that you can tap into? Do you feel like you can expand your reach as a company?
Yeah, I mean, we can, but I also think at the same time, Toronto is the fourth largest city in North America. We have over 5 million people in our just the greater Toronto area. So there's kind of this inferiority complex with a lot of Canadian businesses that they have to go to the US and they feel like that validates their company by being the US. Like, I'm really happy in my local market. I can make a lot of money here. I can make I don't mean to say it like that. I just mean like it's a big industry here in Toronto and Canada. So if I never leave this country, in terms of business operations, that would be okay. But I do recognize that I think Latin America is really kind of our next big move. I think it's one of the best markets. It's untapped. There's so much opportunity there. It's a great gaming culture. So I think after we do a lot of work in Canada, so moving into next year, it's going to be Latin America.
Okay. So Ben, so switching gears here a little bit, tell me about how you are building this business. So what do you have a framework? Do you use a business framework? I call them management blueprints, like the entrepreneurial operating system that I teach companies, which is basically help them orchestrate the moving parts of their business so that they have a cohesive team and everyone's executing with discipline and accountability, and they have a vision and that everyone is aligned around. So do you do any such thing, or do you have some kind of a framework, or is it just a trial and error way of building your business?
If I'm going to be honest with you, it's trial and error. It's figuring this out. This is a pretty new industry. So there's not, 100 years of auto manufacturing, to build off of, in that industry as an example. So we're really figuring it out. And I don't just think it's an esports thing. I also just think it's also a COVID thing. It's, you've developed and you had, this is how we're going to make money, A, B, and C. And now you have to find all new ways to make money in the middle of a pandemic. So trial and error. And look, it's hustle. Like, you just got to keep, I think we're that company. Like, we're that company that I think we'll pitch to an investor and they'll like pass. And I think in the back of their mind, they're thinking like, nah, these guys, they're not going to make it. And then like, we just keep staying around. Like, we just keep finding a way every month to make it work and to keep going. And that's the unorthodox strategy.
So how do you share your time between the different businesses? I mean, you have the investment banking or, capital raising business. You are doing the incubator. You have this sports venue and esport league tournament business. How do you divide your time between these things?
Ideally, I like to build. I like to come up with the idea, the concept, build the framework, the infrastructure, and then I pass it along to teams to execute. So the esports incubator, like that was an idea I had. I just like was shocked that early stage esports companies were like pretty, had very bad business acumen and just weren't really in the place where they needed to be. They needed a lot of work. And there's no incubator, and it's already hard to raise money as a startup. When you add that you're an esports startup, it's harder. So created the idea, I help in the beginning get it off the ground, and then I make sure I hire great people to look after it. And I try to be involved as little as possible. And usually it's more to put out some fires and give some weigh in on certain things. But I think you can't be doing everything yourself. There's not enough hours in the day, and I think leadership is about building other leaders.
Absolutely. So how do you build a team in a new industry like that? When you're trying to figure it out yourself, how do you make sure you hire people? I mean, are there even people out there with this kind of experience? So tell me a little bit about how do you build a team and organization with such novel, innovative initiatives?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about the team. I don't think I've hired one single person on our team. So what is a little bit unique about our situation is it's a good term. Have you heard of like acquihire? So it's like it's an acquisition but hiring. So what we look to do is, we're going to acquire all the different esports verticals that connect to each other. That's our investment thesis, is acquiring esports assets that connect at a local level together. And through that, we acquired the team. So when we bought Waves Gaming, we kept the team and brought 4 of those people on with us. When we acquired Organized Gaming, we brought in the CEO. And so when we make acquisitions, we're not really buying what they're doing. At the end of the day, I could get a lease too, and I could, with enough money, you can do anything. But the secret sauce is the people. So when we look to acquire, we're basically hiring. We find good people to work with and hire and acquire those businesses and then keep them on.
That's interesting. So you're kind of an umbrella, and then you have all these different businesses that you bring in, and these are entrepreneurial businesses, right? So they are run by people who can basically hustle themselves, and you give them the brand, or how does it work?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to look at it. Everyone has had that experience of starting their own business. And so I think those skills are incredibly valuable. They're essential, I would even say. So at that point, I've seen, okay, this person has started their own esports company. They've been able to get this far. Great. We're going to acquire them, combine all of our resources, and then like hit the ground running even harder. Now I'm kind of at the point where I'm a little bit less interested in acquiring businesses. I rather kind of start them. So that's kind of like level 6. We started it. Our big esports championship series, we started it. I've got a new project for esports apparel, starting it. So I'm not really buying stuff that I could do myself unless there's a really good reason to. But I think now we have the right team that we can move into any underserved vertical we want to.
That's pretty exciting. So these people that work with you or work for you, are they your employees or are they fellow owners of your business? How do you motivate them and keep them entrepreneurial?
Yeah, great question. They are all employees and they're all owners. So with all the acquisitions, we acquire them in stock. So they all own shares of our company. So we're all motivated. We're all, yes, they're employees, but they're owners, and it's a different mentality. They really see this as their company. It's our company, Amuka Esports. And I think that gives us a much stronger work ethic.
So what do you expect? You're incubating these esport companies. What is the kind of market opportunity that you see that these companies can tap into? Is this a fast-growing market?
For me running the incubator, or these companies, like the verticals that they're in?
Well, the companies you are incubating in the incubator. So the companies that come and use your services, and what is happening to them? Is this a big market? Is this something that's growing by leaps and bounds, or it's more of a niche where you have some growing demand, but it's not like exploding, and you just have to be the one player, one of the handful of players that can make a living there? What does it look like?
Yeah, I think with all of them. So what we do is we take 4 companies, and one of the things that we make sure is that they're not competitors. Okay, so they're all in 4 different esports verticals. So if I look at our cohort right now, we have a team, we have a fantasy betting platform, we have another platform that is working to improve how streamers can monetize, and another one that's a mobile game social network based in the Philippines. So they're all different. And as they go through the incubator, we have it's 10 weeks where we have weekly calls with them to make sure they're hitting their targets and what they have to do. We have monthly sessions with guest speakers that are industry heavyweights. And at the end of the day, and then we also collaborate and run programs. So if they need to beta test, if they need to new users, if they need to run a tournament, whatever it is, we do that with them. My goal is I want these companies to succeed. I want them to get funded. And what we're really seeing is there's a lot of M&A in there's a ton of M&A in esports, like more than anything else in the world. So if these are good assets out there, and we know about them, I'm sure like there's a good chance we can help get them acquired by other companies out there.
Wow. Has there been an IPO for an esport company yet?
Tons, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's probably like 20 esports companies have already IPO'd in the past couple of years.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So, so what do you expect going forward? What is the 20s going to look like for your business? What is your vision?
Yeah, I think kind of like 2 or 3 really important trends to watch. One is mobile gaming is really going to take over. Here in North America, like we're all very affluent and we all have expensive PCs and whatever. That's not how the rest of the world games. The rest of the world, a tuk-tuk driver in India, he's gaming, but he's gaming on his phone. And that's how most people will play and connect. And so I think that's going to be way bigger globally and also finally make inroads in North America. So, and we want to be a part of that. We're looking to start to field rosters in certain mobile games. The other trend that I don't think is a 2021 trend, it's probably 2022, is V-sports, VR esports. So right now, Oculus 2, the Oculus Quest 2 has just come out. I think it's going to be one of the biggest selling items over the Christmas shopping season. Yeah, so I just think that more consumers will have a VR headset. More game publishers are going to be publishing games that will have a competitive scene. And I think it's cool. Like it's one thing for me to, have my mouse and keyboard and play and compete. It's another to have my headset and I'm boxing and I'm actually throwing punches. It's just a really cool experience. So I think VR is going to be another one of those big trends to look for in the next year or 2.
So VR, virtual reality, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting. And what is your personal vision? I mean, where do you want to take Amuka Esports? Do you see yourself becoming a big player? Just stay focused on Canada, or you're going to go international? And what the business is going to look like? Are you just going to stay with your your venue business, or are you going to keep all those other verticals and you're going to grow it to a conglomerate? Do you have a vision like that?
All of the above, yes. So right now we have announced a merger. We're planning to merge with a company based in Vancouver called YDX. It's a publicly traded company. And through that, we hope to be one of the biggest digital entertainment companies in Canada. But to your point, no, I'm not stopping at Canada. We have some really cool IP that we're working on to go global. Is to really make this a global entertainment company with a lot of very synergistic brands and be one of the leaders, especially for publicly traded esports companies, which we would be once we close on this acquisition.
That's really cool. So who are the investors? Who are the people who are putting money in esports?
A lot of people are putting in money. Then just from October alone, there's been over $300 million of recorded esports investment. So that gives you a good idea. It's everyone now. It's family offices, it's institutional investors. It's, we're seeing Guild Esports, for example, which is based in London. They raised, I can't convert the amount, 40 or $50 million on the David Beckham name to go public there. So there's a lot of money that's flowing. I think investors understand that Gen Z demographic ain't watching movies, isn't listening to as much music, but they're playing video games, and that's really where you're going to get that audience.
Interesting. I also read somewhere that some of the celebrities, athletes, are putting money, like Drake and LeBron James. Can you elaborate on that? What are these guys doing, and what is their idea of funding esports companies and teams?
Yeah, every athlete and every musician and celebrity is involved in an esports team. A lot of them are owners. Some of them are brand ambassadors. LeBron James's son is like a content creator for a big esports company called FaZe Clan. I'm trying to think some of the recent ones. Yeah, The Weeknd is a investor in one of Toronto's teams. Yeah, like it's a who's who out there. Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, Shaq, and A-Rod are part owners in a team called Energy. Like, the list goes on. I can't even keep track of like who's investing, but every top celebrity is doing it. And I think because traditional sports, particularly football, a little bit baseball, it's an old men's club. These are billionaires, and there wasn't really the opportunity for players to become owners in a lot of leagues. And so now with esports, all these players are saying, hey, this is finally my opportunity. I couldn't be a part owner of the Golden State Warriors, but I can be a part owner of, this California esports team. So, and these guys are so competitive. So they love the action. And I think that's where that transition moves in, and they have a big fan base, and they can bring that over to the esports team. And so for all those reasons, we're going to see way more, like every single basketball player, every single sports athlete is going to be in it if they're not already.
Interesting. And what about how do these teams professionalize? Do you expect professional leagues, or are they still already exist, where you can do the same thing as the NBA or the NFL? That you actually have teams that are professional, that are run by professional coaches, and where you have some stability and they keep playing the same games. How would that work?
Yeah, there's kind of two models. One is a franchise model, which is similar to the NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, soccer, where you will purchase a franchise, a city-based franchise from the game publisher, and you'll have it. So there's a Toronto Call of Duty team, there's a Seattle Call of Duty team, just like there are in sports. And that's one model, and that model does provide a lot more cost certainty for the owners, a lot more stability for sponsors, and it's probably the future is to franchise. There's now other leagues that are kind of more like soccer, like golf and tennis, where there's no franchise spot. If you're good enough, you can qualify, and there's a tour. There's major events, there's minor events, and you just go around and you compete in them. And those tend to be single player games. And then there's a few in the middle that are merit-based team, that you have to qualify to win. But once you're in, you get some perks and benefits of a franchise without having to buy a franchise. So those are kind of like the three different models that we're seeing right now, and it's always evolving and changing.
And then what about these games? I mean, they seem to be, some games come into fashion, go out of fashion. Like Fortnite was really huge 2 years ago, and then Minecraft before it. So what do these teams do? I mean, they get good at a game, and when it goes out of fashion, then they switch to another game, or how does that work?
Yeah, though you're right. That is the challenge. So one strategy that some teams have is to just say, let's just have them all. So you hedge your bet. If one of them goes under, you go under. But the biggest risk, especially when you're going to buy a franchise in one of these closed leagues, this is a $25 million investment. So if people stop playing that game, you're in trouble. The other problem to think about is in traditional sports, let's just use football, like American football as an example. They're not making any more football, right? Like there will never be other football leagues. They've tried XFL so when you have a football slot, you have a football slot for life. When you have a Call of Duty slot, that same company can make other Call of Duties and competitors can make more shooter games. So you don't have that cost certainty that people are going to play the same sport forever like you do in traditional sports.
Yeah, so that seems like a big challenge. So anyway, we probably could spend hours digging into this and understanding how that works. So as a leader of your company, I mean, do you have a leadership team that you work with and where you are, people that you're building up, or it's basically you are all professionals that are doing your own thing and it's a loosely organized professional service firm, like a law firm where everyone is practicing law and they come together, but it's not really, they're not really working together. What does it look like in your company?
Yeah, definitely. We've got a very close team, very collaborative. We try not to have any hierarchy. What we kind of structure, there's different brand leads. So people will lead a particular brand, but we very much have like a lateral organizational structure. And we don't like kind of having, managers and reporting and things like that. We want it to be an open collaborative environment. And I think that fosters a little bit more creativity, a little bit more entrepreneurship. And I think that's how we're going to continue to do it.
Awesome. Well, very interesting, Ben. Anything that I should have asked you and would make sense for the show that you want to share with us?
No, I just think, gaming, if you don't play any games, give it a try. Like, I know it seems very daunting that these games are so complicated. They're not. Like, honestly, I hadn't played a PC shooter game in 20 plus years and I picked it up pretty quickly. So I think it's good. If you really want to understand anything, you got to try it out, right? Like, and you'll never really understand esports unless you jump into a game and try to understand the product. So for people who are watching or listening, that's my advice to you, is to give it a shot. Have maybe someone younger than you teach you how to do it, and just enjoy and have fun gaming.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm a little bit intimidated with these games. I don't know how much time I would need to invest in it to get decent and not feel embarrassed about my skills. But yeah, I might pick up FIFA and see how am I doing with the new version, the 2021 version. So
that's the beauty of matchmaking is there's a system that will put you against people at your level so that you don't have to have that feeling.
That's a good point. Excellent. So Ben, very fascinating stuff. People who would like to learn more about esports and Amuka and the leagues and how you can help them, where can they reach you?
Yeah, you can check us out, amukaesports.com. That's our website. And best way to connect with me is probably LinkedIn, Ben Feferman. I'm usually putting out interesting esports content every day, so just drop me a message.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Ben. So Ben Feferman, CEO of Amuka Esports, thank you for joining on the ProfServ Traction, and for the rest of your listeners, we are going to be back next week with some more content and another interesting entrepreneur. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This was the ProfServ Traction Podcast with Steve Preda. To learn how your professional services or technology business could break through the ceiling with EOS, visit tractionequity.com.